for authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce Redneck Radio Man. And tonight we're going to be having open mic night. And I'm going to be taking callers. Real quick, before I start answering phones, though, I want to remind everybody that starting tomorrow at, let me look at this just to make sure I don't make any mistakes on this, because this schedule over there is kind of new to me. All right, starting tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. For 2 hours, I'm going to be interviewing Georgia Love about her book, Escape from Manhattan. And pardon me, I got so busy with the time zoning, making sure I got that right, I forgot her name for a second, the name of her book. But yeah, we're going to do a 2-hour show about her book, and it's much more than just an entertaining read. It covers a lot of material. I mean, it's got an interesting story and plot line, and, you know, part of it is novel, but it's wrapped around a lot of factual information as well that covers a lot of areas that's going on in the world today that's a major concern to her. And we're going to probably talk a little bit more about that than we are the plot line in the book. So if y'all want to join us, you got to go to www.freedomslips.com. Now, this is a listener-supported radio station just like mine. What this basically means to y'all is that the actual people who listen are the ones that either donate, click on affiliate links, or they help promote the show or do something to help the show stay alive, which is a good thing for the listeners, because in so many cases, when you got a corporation that's, saying, I'm going to buy advertising space on your website or in your show, you go to cover something that's important to the public that for some odd reason they don't like the particular topic that you're putting out. They just sit there and say, well, if you run that show or discuss that topic, we're not going to support your site anymore. This means an awful lot to have a big sponsor when you have bills coming due on the first of every month. On the other hand, with listener support, usually it's spread out with a bunch of little payments amongst a bunch of, individual people, and one person getting upset with a topic and backing out is not going to hurt nearly as much as a big corporation with a larger amount would hurt. So it really works out to make it better to keep freedom of information coming through the airwaves for the listeners to support it, and this is the way they prefer to do it over there. Their slogan over there is where information never sleeps, and they've got some 50 or 60 radio shows on one single network. It's not like one show like mine, in other words. Mine's going to be one of many. Now, I will be continuing to do Talk Now Radio in the meantime. My shows are going to be on the usual Wednesday nights and Saturdays. And that's going to be Wednesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. And of course, Saturday's show is going to be, just like always, 11 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Mountain Standard, 1 p.m. Central Standard, and 2 p.m. Eastern. So I'm looking forward to you people coming and joining me over here. And in fact, part of the reason why I'm going over there is I was hoping some of the people that listen to me on Thursdays over there would join us in the chat room over here, and we could have more people and have more fun. Now, I'm expecting people to start calling in any minute now. And in fact, I'm ready to take callers at any time anybody's ready. One more thing. Since this is open mic night, y'all might want to know that the call-in number is 832-632-7904. Or you can just Skype me at Mr. Paranormal. And we can do this whole thing through Skype. My Skype's already hooked up and playing through the player as we speak. And I've got a lot of things coming on down the pike, further down the road, which I'm looking forward to. A lot of interviews that's coming up. Matter of fact, I've already pretty much actually I have filled the March slots for Revolution Radio and for Talk Now Radio, and I got them posted to the front page here. So all y'all have to do, if y'all are interested in knowing what's coming up, is give a scroll down. And what I got listed here is mostly just for March. As y'all know, tonight's open mic night. Tomorrow is Escape from Manhattan over at Revolution Radio. Can Lung Cancer Be Meet is for Saturday right here at this site with Carl O. Helvey. Now, me and Carl did an interview just recently, and what happened was his show didn't record. It didn't take for some odd reason. I'm not sure how that happened, so we're going to redo the whole show. It could be that I thought I'd hit the encoder in a Hatton, but at any rate, the show did not take, so we're going to redo it. And right after him, next Wednesday, is going to be Paul Davids, who also, just like Carl, his show had actually been done, but it got accidentally damaged, and it also has to be redone. So, actually, he was on here right before I had that virus, and I lost him in the virus. So, he's going to be coming back and doing another show so we can rebuild this. And we're going to be talking about the Life After Death Project. And me and Carl's going to be talking about can lung cancer be beaten. He says he did actually beat it. Then, well, hold on just a second. I think we got a caller coming in now. Okay, I got you on the group call. Now all I got to do is make sure we're not on hold. Okay, are you still with me, Mark? Mark? Oh, no. Mark?
Hello, Royce.
Yeah, you called back and I think I lost you somehow.
Oh, I think the call was on hold, was it?
Yeah, I think it might have been, because when I answered that other one, it went right on call. Let me make sure that people in the chat room can hear us now that we got each other. They ought to be able to hear us.
All righty.
Okay, if y'all can hear me in the chat room, if y'all can hear Mark in the chat room, would y'all please let us know? That was a big oops on my part.
It happens.
I was just telling everybody about things I've got going on here and about the fact that I was fixing to start over at Revolution Radio starting tomorrow at 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern.
I think you're going to like it over there a lot.
That's what Zen Garcia was saying, and actually, Gordon Johnny Noto said the same thing. Now, he's not okay, they can hear us both.
Good.
Alrighty. Anyway, that's what also Gordon Johnny Noto was saying. He's not a host. He's a regular guest, which you might have interviewed him a few times. He's a pretty regular guest almost everywhere.
Oh, really?
If you missed him, I don't know how. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I might have interviewed him, but the name doesn't ring a bell right off the top of my head. But yeah, I think you'll like Revolution Radio. It's a really good group of people, and they're really getting. They got a big audience, man. What can I say? They're approaching Alex Jones kind of numbers. So
That's actually what I heard through the grapevine as they was approaching or past it. I think they passed him on one of the radio directories or the like TuneIn.com type places. I think they passed him there, but not everywhere.
Wow, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that is pretty big.
I didn't know we had done that. I'm on Studio B. Were you on Studio B or Studio A?
No, I'm on Studio A.
Okay, cool.
So I had to keep everything pretty much G-rated.
I'm pretty G-rated anyway, so it doesn't matter. I very seldom cuss for any reason. You know, even if I feel like it, I generally don't, so it's not really an issue. Right.
So, you was wanting to talk to us about, what's going on with Billy Myers these days?
Well, I can, here's the thing with the Billy Meyer case. I don't know with what level you've really studied it. There is so much material in the Billy Meyer case. I think I will study it for the rest of my life and never reach the end. There's just that much. So what I can do tonight, depending on how far you want to take this, I can turn into a talking head and start going into the case. And if you want to interrupt me with any questions or however you want to do it, it's your show, man. So
I was going to say, why don't we go ahead and start in on this since nobody's calling in at the moment. And if we start getting callers, we could put this on the back burner and let them call in and say what they have to say. And if we should run out of time, we got each other on Skype. We can always schedule a separate show if you like.
Oh, sure.
And we'll just cover what we're able to. What do you think?
That sounds good. That sounds like a great plan. I like that. Well, I will go back. I'm going to go back in time to about 1945. Might have been actually 1944. Billy was about 4 years old, and he woke up at 3 a.m. one morning, and he crawled out a lower window there on his bedroom, and he sat on a bench outside. It was a beautiful May evening in Switzerland, in Bulak, Switzerland, actually, and he looked up at this beautiful starry sky, and he sensed what he called a radiating light, an invisible light, he called it. And he sensed that was the love of the creation. And he saw the sparkling stars, and he heard his own voice say, a young 4-year-old boy, his voice said, my life exists because of the love of creation. And then he said, since ancient times, I've lived among the stars. And these memories started flooding in, all of these good memories, and he felt like he knew his life's purpose then. So the next day, when he woke up, he went to the local pastor there in Bulak, which was a man named Pastor Rudolf Zimmerman, and he told Pastor Zimmerman about his experience. And Pastor Zimmerman said that was a very important experience, Billy. You should pay attention to that. And then Billy told Pastor Zimmerman that he had been hearing voices at times. And it was like someone was talking to them. And then Pastor Zimmerman explained to Billy something called telepathy. So a few days went by, and young Edward went out into the forest as he loved to do there in beautiful Switzerland, a beautiful area in Switzerland. And he was out in the forest playing, and he was looking in a stream, and he saw these fish swimming around the stream, and he was just watching these fish. And then he saw a flash out of the corner of his eye, and he looked up, and he saw this silvery pear-shaped craft coming out of the sky. And it came down, and it hovered just a few inches above the ground there in a field. And then out of this craft stepped a very elderly human man. And this man walked over to young Billy, took him by the hand, led him back into the ship. and introduced himself. His name was Svath. He was a 1,000-year-old extraterrestrial human. And then he started to talk to young Billy. And he started to tell Billy what his mission in this life would be. And he explained that he would be a teacher of something called the teaching of the Spirit. And Svath explained to him that he had done this before and that he had previous lives on the earth, and that for the past 13,000 years he had been a kind of prophet, and that in his previous personalities he had been Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, and Muhammad. And that each time he lived one of these lives, he taught this ancient universal teaching. And the central theme of this teaching was the definition of something that these extraterrestrials call the creation.
Wait a minute. Pardon the interruption, but I think I know what's going down here. Isn't this teaching that you're referring to the Enoch prophecies?
Wow, the Enoch prophecies are part of this whole big picture, a very important part of this picture. Enoch or Henoch was one of the previous personalities of this very ancient human spirit that has incarnated on the earth multiple times. The extraterrestrials look at him as Nocodamian. We look at him as Billy Edward Albert Meyer. In one of his previous lives, he was Enoch. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yes, you're what you said is correct.
No, you didn't interrupt me. I was interrupting you, and I apologize. But you did say I could do that.
No, you can do that anytime you want. That was a good question. So I like to be interrupted because I'm a talking head when it comes to this topic. So Svath explained to Billy that the biggest problem with the Earth humans is that they don't understand the creation. And he explained that we were going into a time called the third millennium that would start when the United States would drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And Svath told Billy that eventually this teaching that he would give would bring in an era of peace, an era of freedom and prosperity for the people of the earth, but that it would take many centuries until the people of earth caught on to this concept. Now, I'll cover this quickly and then we'll come back to it because it's such a big topic.
Yes.
It's very profound and very deep. In the teaching of the Spirit, which is what these extraterrestrials have brought to the earth, and they say, and the Meyer material says, all of the earth religions are based on this. But over time, the earth religions have been distorted in certain ways, and they've gotten off track. And there are basically 5 general concepts. The first is, what is the universal consciousness? Who created the universe? They say the creation is a neutral positive entity that builds universes as a part of its own evolution. One of Billy's later contacts, a Plejaren woman named Semyase, said, she explained the creation this way. She said that wisdom and love go together, and that the creation and its laws are wisdom and love. And where there is wisdom, there is knowledge. And where there is love, there is cognition. And Semyase explained to Billy that within every human is a tiny fragment of this universal consciousness. This fragment they call the human spirit. And they say the human spirit is located deep within the brain, and that after we die, the human spirit leaves the body and it goes into this etheric band of energy around the planet that you die on, and it kind of goes into a sleep state somewhat. The universal consciousness takes your life experiences and stores them like a mosaic in what some people call the Akashic records. Now, the typical time on Earth on the other side is about 152 years, but people often come back sooner if their life was cut short, or in cases of where the world that they're living on has a lot of overpopulation, people will come back sooner. Now, after your time in the spiritual realm, the universal consciousness will take your human spirit and place it back into the body of a child. And then something comes down called the consciousness block, which is designed to kind of screen out your past life memories so that you can start this new life kind of with a clean slate. Now, some people do have legitimate past life memories, but the idea is that each time we live, we're not flooded with all our previous experiences, so we can start anew. Now, what happens as the child's consciousness grows? There's kind of a link between the human spirit and the subconscious, and there's still some level of knowing. As you grow older and older, you will have a kind of knowing that's based to a certain degree on your previous life experiences. So that's how the wisdom is carried through each lifetime. And the purpose of our lives is to gather wisdom. Billy has a writing that I really like. It's called The Goblet of Truth, and it has a paragraph in it that says, it's entitled, What the Truth Knows to Say. And it goes on and explains that rivers, lakes, seas, the earth, stones, bushes, trees, everything that crawls and flies on the earth is a life form with a spirit form. And these spirit forms are on a journey through time that involves many, many lifetimes. And many of these creatures communicate with one another through psychic vibrations. And that if you go into the forest, you can hear these creatures communicate, the crickets, the cicadas, all the various kinds of birds, the frogs, the peepers, the coyotes, the wolves, the owls. All these creatures are connected by psychic vibrations. If you see a flock of birds, you can see them turn on a dime as if they're connected to each other in some amazing way. Now, Billy has a later writing, it's called, I think, Love Letter 27, where he described it this way. He said that the incredible splendor of nature is nothing more than the visible expression of the love of creation, and that creation radiates love. And if it wasn't for the love of creation, nothing would exist that does exist. And that love is the highest principle in creation. And through that principle, everything follows in absolute logic. So that even the smallest plant or animal fulfills its purpose in creation. Now, we as humans with a consciousness, we can close ourselves off to the radiating love of creation. But we can experience this radiating love at every moment and every place. But sometimes, because we close ourselves off to the radiating love of creation, life and the earth feels like a place without love. Now, Billy continued to meet with Svath for 11 years, this elderly Plejaren man. And if you notice, I use the word Plejaren and not Pleiadian, because in 1995, the Pleiadians revealed their true identity. And they told us that they're not from the Pleiades, but they're from 80 light years beyond our Pleiades in a different space-time configuration. And between 1975 and 1986, the main contact time, there were 2,862 extraterrestrial humans on the Earth. They came from nearby star systems, they came from the Plejaren system, and they came from the Tao universe. Now, when they left in 1995, they basically cleared out all their bases and all the evidence of their bases. At that time, they had 3 bases on the Earth, one in Asia, one in North America, and one in Switzerland. The one in Switzerland had been here for 350 years. Now, they wouldn't tell us why they were leaving, but they did leave in 1995, and they revealed their true identities at that time. One of the things that Svath warned Billy about, he said that the people of the earth make for themselves idols. So he told him to stay in the background and focus on his writing, that other people would come forward to tell his story. Svath also warned him that some people would hate his information and try to kill him. There was been over 20 attempts on his life. And he was warned that even his wife would turn against him and call him a hoaxer. Billy was also told that he would eventually lose his left arm in a very difficult bus accident. So young Edward met with Svath for 11 years until he was 16 years old. And then he was told that he would get his second extraterrestrial teacher. And he was told to go into a specific location up on a specific hill and to wait. And he did that when he was 16 years old. And out of the sky came another craft that sat down not far from him, and a hatch opened. And he felt an urge to walk in the craft, so he did, and there was no one else in there. So he realized that it was kind of a robotic ship. And then the door shut, and he sat down in the only chair there. And then the ship became invisible. He became invisible. He couldn't see his own hands in front of his face. And then the ship sped away. And he was watching, he could see the ground right underneath him. And he could tell they were flying towards the Middle East. And they eventually went over top of the Great Pyramids. You know, they're still fairly high. And eventually, some distance from the Great Pyramid, the ship landed. He stepped out of the ship. And it was night. And he realized that there looked like something like a falling star coming out of the sky, and it started to light up the whole sky. And as it got lower and lower, he realized it was another ship. And it was about a 300-foot diameter ship that was hovering almost right in front of him, not far away at all. And it slowly came down, and it landed there. And he had to wait a half an hour because nothing happened. And a half an hour later, 30 minutes later, a hatch opened and a beautiful woman walked out. And he was stunned when he saw her because he felt profoundly like he knew who she was. And she introduced herself as Asket. And he had to ask her, he said, "Why do I feel like I know you?" And she said, "I can't tell you, but I can tell you this. You should search your feelings and you should search your memories." And she walked over to Billy and she introduced herself. And he already knew that she was going to be his second teacher. And she put a little device on his belt. And she touched the same device on her belt. And they both became invisible. And she told him that we're going to go into the Great Pyramid. But we're going to have to be very, very quiet. You can't talk. Just follow me. So they start to walk through the desert here, and they get to a certain point in the Great Pyramid, and she knows how to get, there's an entrance that she knows, and they go down this long, long, long shaft that's completely dark, and they're walking, I don't know how long, quite a long time, and they eventually get to another passageway that they go through, and they're far below the Giza Plateau at this point in the Great Pyramid. And they walk into this tremendous hallway with this very high ceiling. And there is another giant disc. Yes. Some 300 feet in diameter. There are guards there. They can't see them. Remember, Asket and Billy at this point are invisible. And he sees the most strange thing. He sees what looks like the artifacts of the crucifixion of Christ. And he's just stunned by this. And Asket can sense his astonishment. So she kind of grabs him and pulls him away. And they walk back up through this passageway, and they come out of the Great Pyramid, and she touches something on their belts, they become visible, and they start to talk. And this is the first meeting between Asket and Billy, and he decides at this point, he's probably told that he should do this, that he's going to leave Switzerland for a while, and he's going to move to the Middle East. So he goes to India, and he joins what's called the Ashoka Ashram, which is, a religious center, a place where people study spiritual things. Mm-hmm. And the strangest thing happens is Asket starts to meet him there at the Ashoka Ashram. And literally her ship would sometimes hover over the ashram, and the people there, I guess in India, it's just not that big of a deal. But he would be walking through the gardens there in these long conversations with Asket. Now, there was a little girl that he got to meet there at the ashram. Her name was Phobal Chang. And she saw both Billy and she saw Billy having these intense conversations with this woman from another world. Now, Phobal Chang would eventually grow up to be a UN diplomat, and she would later come to Switzerland many, many years later and talk to Billy about their experiences there at the Ashoka Ashram. And there's some very interesting interviews. You'll have to look on YouTube to find them, but she explains that the gardeners there at the Ashoka Ashram thought that this extraterrestrial woman actually was a goddess from heaven. And Phobal will tell the story of seeing Billy and seeing Asket involved in these very, very long conversations that would go on, probably for hours. I'm not sure exactly. But Billy met with Asket for another 11-year period, and this is still his training. Now, interesting sidebar about Asket, her people are known as the Timmers, and they're said to live in a parallel universe to ours, in a universe they refer to as the Tao universe. Now, the interesting thing about these two extraterrestrial groups, the Plejaren and the people from the Tao universe, they have a common ancestor called the Lyrians. And Semyase, his next teacher, told Billy that your forefathers are our forefathers. and our forefathers are the Lyrians. The Semjase explained it this way. She said, 26 million years ago, this person named Nocodamian led the Lyrians from the depths of the known universe to the constellation of Lyra Vega, where they settled in the oldest space-time shifted regions of the constellation of Lyra. Particularly around the star Vega, there were very, very large planets. And the Lyrians were what they call a fifth stage human society. They were living in what the Plejaren referred to as creational wisdom. Now, one of the things when we haven't quite got officially yet to Billy's meetings with Semjase, but I have referred to them. One of the things Semjase told Billy is that she put it like this. She said, the human spirit is the seat of the infinite, but few are aware of it. She said it takes sound logic and freedom from unreal teaching to unlock the power within the human spirit. Now, these Lyrians that I was telling you about, they were in the fifth stage of human evolution. There are 7 stages. The fifth stage is the highest stage before human beings become, again, half spirit. The next stage is what they call the Patali level. But some of these Lyrians became what they call the JHWH. They also call them Ishwish. They call them Kings of Wisdom. And these are people that have nearly mastered the almost limitless powers of the human spirit. We're supposed to be at some point able to do telekinesis, telepathy, look into the future, look into the past, and many, many other incredible things. But our common forefathers between these Plejaren and these Timmers is this other group called the Lyrians. Now, Asket met with Billy for 11 years, and then his contacts with her stopped. And Billy had an 11-year period where he had no contacts. During that period, he had his horrible bus accident where he lost his left arm. He got married to his wife, a Greek woman named Calliope, and they moved back to Hinterschmid-Ruti in Switzerland, and they started their family. They had their children, and in 1975, Billy got his first visit from Semjase, a 350-year-old Plejaren woman, halfway on the road to becoming what they call an Ishwish. And it was at this time that Billy's public mission started. Colonel Wendell Stevens came over to Switzerland. He brought the private investigation team, which tested the photographs, which tested the metal samples, which tested the sound recordings, which also tested the films. He has 30 minutes of 30 millimeter color film of these ships hovering around his farm there in Schmid-Ruti. He at one point had around 1,100 photographs. Some were stolen, some were destroyed. Sound recordings, metal samples. But I've never been one to obsess over the physical evidence because I've always very, very much been interested in what these extraterrestrials had to say, particularly about the universe, about our place in the universe. And another thing that's very, very interesting, that I find very interesting, is they give us an incredible view of Earth history. For example, they tell us that about 30,000 years ago that one of these kings of wisdom from the Plejaren system came to the earth, and he brought 70,000 people. His name was Pelagon. He was very. Are
you still there? Uh-oh. I wonder what's happened here. Let me check and see if I'm showing to be. Well, I'm registering, but he's not. Folks, I think Mark has run into a small difficulty. Let me test something real quick. Well, it didn't come on. Okay, it's not on my end. My end is working. Okay, so something's going on Mark's end, folks. I'm not exactly sure what's happened. I can try to get him back. Well, I lost Stanley. At any rate, let me try to get back, well, let's see what we got here. Are you there, Mark?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, we seem to have lost our connection, or I did, or somebody did. You know what, here lately, we've lost our internet over the last couple of days. Everybody in the house but me, because I'm on Ethernet, and I figured there's some kind of interfering signal, sunspots, or something that's messing with the wireless. But this time it appears that I was affected, or you lost yours. Oh wait, Cajun Ghost Hunter said he got a message that the server was active. He must have got that when he reloaded my web page. My guess would be that I lost my connection for a brief instant, and we're back.
Okay, I am very aware of some of the technical issues that you can run into on radio shows.
Well, we're kind of stuck with that. It's the downside of it. We're dependent on this technology, and it's the only technology we got to use.
Well, I think sometimes the technical issues are also related to sometimes the subjects that you cover. At least I noticed that if you want to get hung up a lot or have a lot of technical problems, talk about Fukushima. Do you ever discuss Fukushima on your show?
That's one subject I'm not familiar with, and believe me, there's not a lot of those that I know of.
Well, that's one of my favorite topics is, besides the Billy Meyer case, is what I consider. Well, I'm really changing topics on our listeners. I'll try to get back on track here. To me, the greatest disaster in recorded history occurred on March 11th, 2011.
Oh, the radioactive thing.
Yes, in Japan.
I take it back. I'm a little more familiar than I thought.
Yep. Those nuclear reactors the radiation was never contained on those reactors. They are still spewing radioactivity into the Pacific Ocean and into the air. People are not aware of that. It's been covered up on the mainstream media. That would be another subject for you to look into there. But yeah, that one will get you some technical problems if you talk about Fukushima. Anyway.
I thought sure talking about the early church would do that.
Do you talk about the early church sometime?
Oh, a lot.
Oh, do you? Is that a controversial topic?
Yeah, it's been my finding it pretty much is, especially when you start, letting on where certain things began, like Sunday worship, that many people claim is a biblical doctrine that really started well, it was made legal in the days of Constantine, for example, but that's a whole big another story. But basically what we're taught in church and what's actual historical records are two different things.
Isn't that interesting? I think our history is very different than what we think in many cases. It's just, I think a lot of these monolithic structures, like I alluded to in the beginning of the show, the Great Pyramid, are much, much older than we think.
Oh, I'm quite sure they probably are. In fact, it was Johnny West, wasn't it, or Ron West, him and Robert Schoch, that showed the water lines on the Sphinx that showed that it was really built way back in the time when the area was more tropic.
Yeah. Another very interesting. I like the Great Pyramid. I could talk a lot about the Great Pyramid. If you study the way that structure was built, it's really astonishing. Particularly the King's Chamber. There's like 140-ton gravel, 40-ton granite blocks in there, and those granite blocks were cut out of a quarry 500 miles away and carted all that way, and then lifted up about 200 feet and stacked perfectly, so perfectly you could barely fit a razor blade through between them, and polished to the point where you can almost see a reflection. You know, there's really no practical way to cut granite that we know of other than to use an electric saw blade with a diamond tip.
Well, somebody's recently come up with a theory that they was making these huge molds and like mixing limestone granite, like a wet cement mixture inside of it. They'd put these big molds into place and then fill them with this cement like limestone granite mixture.
Professor Daviditis, was he the one that came up with that?
That sounds about right.
I think they did that probably on a lot of those outer stones. The Great Pyramid is such an incredible thing. I mean, 2,300,000 stones, 481 feet high. The base is 13 square acres.
Astronomical alignments are, well, there's no accident, and, you know, there had to be a purpose behind that. And, you know, Robert Bauval and Wayne Herschel have both showed that the layout of the land, all the main markers on the ground line up to stars in the heaven, like a star map. And Wayne Herschel and Paul Davids have seen this same phenomena in America as well, not to mention other places around the world.
Were you able to interview Wayne Herschel?
No, I had actually set the man up here a few years back, and on the actual show day, I got him on the phone, live on the air, and we started getting an awful lot of static, and we lost our connection, and I lost contact with him for a while, and he just kind of drifted out of sight.
Oh, that's interesting. I had the hardest time trying to schedule a show with him. Yeah, I think he's under pressure. He's getting pressure, pushback, I think. I don't know exactly what.
It's no wonder you ever go to his website and read some of the articles he's posted on it?
No.
You ought to, go by there and take a read. It might explain why he'd be under pressure. I mean, a lot of his material does not go with well-documented church or academic history.
I think our history is so much more interesting than the watered-down version we've been given. I heard a great coast-to-coast show once. What is it, Giorgio Tsoukalos?
Oh, I like him.
I do too. He said something.
I think I ticked him off, but I like him.
You kicked him off your show?
No, ticked him. Made him angry.
Oh, you did? Why?
Well, I was just having some fun. I think I did it by accident. I think I hit a wrong nerve. But
did you talk about his hair or something?
Yes, that's exactly what I did. I had watched the Ancient Aliens show, and his hair reminded me of a Centauri. So I commented on it live on the show.
Oh.
And I have not heard from him since, and I'm like, oh my God, I bet I offended him, and I really had not meant to do it.
Well, I'll have to remember that if I ever get him on the show. But it's hard to comment. I don't know why he purposely wears his hair all over the place like that.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, and
No.
I thought maybe he just liked it that way. And I didn't think he would take it offensively, but maybe there's something I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. He did a show on Coast to Coast on July 31st, 2011. And I wrote down this little thing he said. It made such a big impression on me. He said there is an ancient manuscript from Egypt called the Al-Hittat that says the pyramids were built by the Egyptians with the assistance of the guardian watchers of the sky, also called the Watchers from Heaven. And I always thought that was just absolutely fascinating. And I have another book here that gives some insight into the pyramids. And it's a book by Colonel Wendell Stevens. And
I've heard of him.
Oh, yeah. He's one of the investigators on the Meyer case. A very well-known UFO researcher. And his story is kind of interesting. But I have to look up exactly where it is. But there's one of the older step pyramids in Giza. Has a mural. It's called Zozar's Pyramid, and I'll read this little section. Dr. Lawrence Kennedy was visiting Egypt and took some time to inspect the ancient pyramids there. He was looking for evidence of the mysterious energies so often reported from the place and was trying to ascertain their source and the nature of the now popular pyramid energy itself, if possible. In addition to the public tours, he arranged a private tour of the pyramid complex for his party. One of the things not on the regular tour program was a visit to Zozar's Pyramid, which is the step pyramid. It has another name, too. And in particular, an opportunity to examine a chamber in the pyramid that is not open to the public. To his great surprise, he discovered there was a mural painting on one wall of the room that clearly showed a larger, cylindrical, cigar-shaped object in the air over the area, surrounded by several other airborne objects of a circular disc shape. An extensive inscription on the picture done in ancient Proto-Egyptian writing described a visit to Egypt by a celestial beings who came from another place in the heavens. And I thought, wow, why aren't we taught that in school? Why aren't we given that information? I thought that was one of the most fascinating things.
I find it amazing that this hasn't been talked about more on the internet. I mean, you're the first time I've heard of this.
I know, Royce, there's so much out there. There's still so much out there. Like what I was starting to get into just before we got cut off, and I know we're not going to have enough time for it, but that's okay.
And we can always meet on a later date. I'm up for it if you are.
Oh, sure. That'd be great. Some of the ancient civilizations that have been on the earth that are documented in the Meyer case, who the leaders were and how the civilizations came to an end. Incredible depth of information on Atlantis and Lemuria, who the leaders were, some of the crises that occurred during that whole society, what caused the Great War, what caused the Great War that wiped them out. Very, very, who the Aryans were. The Germans were always
about that. I recently was reading a book by Richard Dewhurst about the ancient giants who ruled America, and part of the finds, I want to say it was either in Carolina or the Catalina Islands, were some Mandaean Indians that were of giant stature, at least 6'5" and above, that had blonde hair, blue eyes. First thing I thought of was the Aryans of Hitler's fame, that was also supposedly the same ones that come in and try to take over the Hindus, in other words. So, you don't know what kind of connections there are and where they're really at.
I think there are a lot of connections that are particularly fascinating. I don't know as much about this as I would like to know about it, but the whole story of Atlantis and Lemuria talks about the rise of this civilization under a man named Pelagon, who came from another star system. And I think that's what's happened in the ancient past, that some of these societies were created by extraterrestrial humans. And you talked about giants, and very ironically, you mentioned they were blonde hair and blue-eyed. These Lyrians were supposed to be blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
And on top of that, I've heard that the Atlantis was originally founded by Lyrians.
Yeah. I mean, the Ishwish, who led the Atlanteans, was of Lyrian descent. And he and his wife, Karaitide, built this beautiful city on an island continent that, my understanding is, existed somewhere between South America and Africa. And it had a tremendous climate, perfect for living, and it wasn't long until you'd see these beautiful skyscrapers, this architecture. I shouldn't say skyscrapers, but, and then later there came a man named Muras, who built the city of Lemuria, which was somewhere near the Gobi Desert. And he also built 2 underground cities, one called Agartha Alpha and Agartha Beta. And these cities were connected by an underground tunnel system. And both Atlantis and Lemuria, they lived in peace for some 2,000 years before they started to have any kinds of trouble at all. And then the whole story of how the trouble got started and the people that came in, and it relates to Aryans. We were talking about the Aryans. So it's a good story for another day, though.
You're on Facebook, aren't you, Mark?
Yeah, if you look Ohio Exopolitics on Facebook.
I was just telling Stanley in the chat room that you host your own show called Ohio Exopolitics. You still got that over at Blog Talk Radio, am I correct?
Right. You can go to the Blog Talk Radio show, which is blogtalkradio.com, Ohio Exopolitics. If you Google Ohio Exopolitics, that's probably the easiest way to find it. And I'm on Saturday night on freedomslips.com, which is Revolution Radio, in Studio B at 8 p.m. The show on Sunday on Blog Talk is 8 p.m. Eastern. And your listeners can stop by there. And I want to formally welcome you to Revolution Radio. I think you're going to love it.
Oh, I'm quite sure I will. They seem to know who I was well in advance when they come looking for me, but I was on Blog Talk Radio so long. There's not a lot of people who don't know who I am by now, I would think. No, I don't mean to sound full of myself, but I mean when you've been around for so long, your name gets passed around. In other words,
are you still in touch with Michael Tellinger at all? I listen to some of your shows.
Yes, I am.
Oh, those shows you did with him are great.
Oh, really? The thing about him is because he's in Africa so much, it's hard to get him pinned down for a show.
I'm sure.
But he's got great information when you do get him. You just have to be patient working them into the schedule.
Well, it's good that you have contacts with him, man, because I thought you guys did great shows together.
Oh, well, thank you. I wasn't even aware you were listening. Because myself, I don't have time to listen to everybody's show because I run a one-man show myself, and it's a very time-consuming, project, in other words. So I kind of figured you may not have much more time than I have.
I don't. I don't have any other memberships to Coast or anything else, anymore. Just because I spend so much time, in everything that I'm involved in. You're probably very busy, I'm sure, too, as well.
Well, my wife just now got in, and she's probably waiting to meet with me to go watch Criminal Minds, so I guess I've been wrapped on this one. However, I've got you on Skype, and I think you and me could probably have quite a few good shows just randomly coming up with topics that we're interested in because we seem to share a wealth of knowledge in various areas.
Particularly in ancient history. I'd love to talk to you more about that. That'd be wonderful.
You are aware of the fact that ancient mythology, prehistory, ancient religions, the early church, ancient aliens, all of that has been a favorite 20-plus year study of mine, right?
I would also love to talk to you about any of those topics. And it sounds like you have a lot of information on the early church, which might be very interesting.
I got a little personal thing with the church. I mean, I don't want to just shoot them down altogether. I mean, a lot of people do get some value out of it, but while this is all said and done and true, they're not a upfront organization either. I mean, I wouldn't, claim them as my path to God, in other words, and I sure wouldn't, force feed them down other people's throats, in other words.
I hear you. There's some interesting passages out there that can certainly be looked at from other perspectives, too. It'd be great topics for shows.
Oh, yeah. No, there's, the topic of the Bible itself. It's not all it's cracked up to be. And, you got one camp out there that says the whole Bible's a lie, another camp that says the whole thing's the truth. And the truth is right where it usually almost always is. It's right down the middle.
Well, thanks, Royce. I've really had a good time talking to you tonight.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too, Mark. This is the first time for us. I don't want to hold you up. I'm pretty sure you have things you want to prepare for. But let's get a schedule. Dude, how about March the 6th on Revolution Radio?
Oh, okay. You're in the middle of the afternoon, though, right?
Yeah, at 2 p.m. Eastern. Is that going to be a bad time of day for you?
Yeah, I'll be slaving away at the day job, unfortunately.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, maybe I can, we'll have to figure something out, but we'll definitely, or maybe I could have you on, my show. I'm on Saturday night sometime. We could
yeah, I could probably do that. I just need to give my wife an advance notice that,
okay.
We're not going to meet that particular night.
All right. We'll figure something out. Let's stay in touch.
Sounds like a winner, Mark.
All right. Thanks, Royce.
All right. Thank you. And folks, thanks y'all for kindly listening in. And we'll see you again Thursday, which is tomorrow, over at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, Studio A. And the chat room's always open to go over there and check the place out early. And I'm going to wrap it with that, folks.
Good night.
Good night. Looking forward to you people coming and joining me over here. And in fact, part of the reason why I'm going over there is I was hoping some of the people that listen to me on Thursdays over there would join us in the chat room over here, and we could have more people and have more fun. Now, I'm expecting people to start calling in any minute now. And in fact, I'm ready to take callers at any time anybody's ready. One more thing. Since this is open mic night, y'all might want to know that the call-in number is 832-632-7904. Or you can just Skype me at Mr. Paranormal. And we can do this whole thing through Skype. My Skype's already hooked up and playing through the player as we speak. And I've got a lot of things coming on down the pike, further down the road, which I'm looking forward to. A lot of interviews that's coming up. Matter of fact, I've already pretty much I have filled the March slots for Revolution Radio and for Talk Now Radio, and I got them posted to the front page here. So all y'all have to do, if y'all are interested in knowing what's coming up, is give a scroll down. And what I got listed here is mostly just for March. As y'all know, tonight's open mic night. Tomorrow is Escape from Manhattan over at Revolution Radio. Can Lung Cancer Be Meet is for Saturday right here at this site with Carl O. Helvey. Now, me and Carl did an interview just recently, and what happened was his show didn't record. It didn't take for some odd reason. I'm not sure how that happened, so we're going to redo the whole show. It could be that I thought I'd hit the encoder in a Hatton, but at any rate, the show did not take, so we're going to redo it. And right after him, next Wednesday, is going to be Paul Davids, who also, just like Carl, that was a big oops on my part.
It happens.
I was just telling everybody about things I've got going on here, and about the fact that I was fixing to start over at Revolution Radio starting tomorrow at 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern.
I think you're going to like it over there a lot.
That's what Zen Garcia was saying, and actually Gordon Johnny Noto said the same thing. Now, he's not okay, they can hear us both.
Good.
Alrighty. Anyway, that's what also Gordon Johnny Noto was saying. He's not a host. He's a regular guest, which you might have interviewed him a few times. He's a pretty regular guest almost everywhere.
Oh, really?
If you missed him, I don't know how. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I might have interviewed him, but the name doesn't ring a bell right off the top of my head. But yeah, I think you'll like Revolution Radio. It's a really good group of people, and they're really getting. They got a big audience, man. What can I say? They're approaching Alex Jones kind of numbers. So
that's actually what I heard through the grapevine as they was approaching past it. I think they passed him on one of the radio directories or the TuneIn.com type places. I think they passed them there, but not everywhere.
Wow, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that is pretty big.
I didn't know we had done that. I'm on Studio B. Were you on Studio B or Studio A?
No, I'm on Studio A.
Okay, cool.
So I had to keep everything pretty much G-rated.
I'm pretty G-rated anyway, so it doesn't matter. I very seldom cuss for any reason. You know, even if I feel like it, I generally don't, so it's not really an issue. Right.
So, you was wanting to say, talk to us about the actual people who listen are the ones that either donate, click on affiliate links, or they help promote the show or do something to help the show stay alive, which is a good thing for the listeners, because in so many cases, when you got a corporation that's saying, I'm going to buy advertising space on your website or in your show, you go to cover something that's important to the public that for some odd reason they don't like the particular topic that you're putting out. They just sit there and say, well, if you run that show or discuss that topic, we're not going to support your site anymore. This means an awful lot to have a big sponsor when you have bills coming due on the 1st of every month. On the other hand, with listener support, usually it's spread out with a bunch of little payments amongst a bunch of, individual people, and one person getting upset with a topic and backing out is not going to hurt nearly as much as a big corporation with a larger amount would hurt. So it really works out to make it better to keep freedom of information coming through the airwaves for the listeners to support it, and this is the way they prefer to do it over there. Their slogan over there is where information never sleeps, and they've got some 50 or 60 radio shows on one single network. It's not like one show like mine. In other words, mine's going to be one of many. Now, I will be continuing to do Talk Now Radio in the meantime. My shows are going to be on the usual Wednesday nights and Saturdays. And that's going to be Wednesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. And of course, Saturday's show is going to be just like always, 11 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Mountain Standard, 1 p.m. Central Standard, and 2 p.m. Eastern. So, this show had actually been done but it got accidentally damaged, and it also has to be redone. So actually, he was on here right before I had that virus, and I lost him in the virus. So he's going to be coming back and doing another show so we can rebuild this. And we're going to be talking about the Life After Death Project. And me and Carl's going to be talking about, can lung cancer be beaten? He says he did actually beat it. Then, well, hold on just a second. I think we got a caller coming in now. Okay, I got you on the group call. Now all I got to do is make sure we're not on hold. Okay, are you still with me, Mark? Mark? Oh, no. Mark?
Hello, Royce.
Yeah, you called back and I think I lost you somehow.
Oh, I think the call was on hold, was it?
Yeah, I think it might have been, because when I answered that other one, it went right on call. Let me make sure that people in the chat room can hear us now that we got each other. They ought to be able to hear us.
All righty.
Okay, if y'all can hear me in the chat room, if y'all can hear Mark in the chat room, would y'all please let us know?
For authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce Redneck Radio Man. And tonight we're going to be having open mic night. And I'm going to be taking callers. Real quick, like before I start answering phones, though, I want to remind everybody that starting tomorrow at, well, let me look at this just to make sure I don't make any mistakes on this, because the schedule over there is kind of new to me. All right, starting tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. For 2 hours, I'm going to be interviewing Georgia Love about her book, Escape from Manhattan. And pardon me, I got so busy with the time zoning, making sure I got that right, I forgot her name for a second, the name of her book. But yeah, we're going to do a 2-hour show about her book, and it's much more than just an entertaining read. It covers a lot of material. I mean, it's got an interesting story and plot line, and, you know, part of it is novel, but it's wrapped around a lot of factual information as well that covers a lot of areas that's going on in the world today that's a major concern to her. And we're going to probably talk a little bit more about that than we are the plot line in the book. So if y'all want to join us, you got to go to www.freedomslips.com. Now, this is a listener-supported radio station just like mine. What this basically means to y'all is that